Sponsored by Skillshare. Before we begin, this channel, which I started almost 2 years ago, has just hit 30 million views. I want to thank you so much for being part of this conversation with me. Here's to the next 30 million. When Steve Jobs announced the original iPhone in 2007, the first big leap forward, it was made possible by the confluence of several rapidly emerging technologies: capacitive multitouch, ubiquitous mobile data networks, and miniaturized computing. All of these technologies existed prior to the iPhone, of course, but they'd never been brought together before in anything resembling as polished or approachable a way as the iPhone. Evolution followed revolution, and over the course of the last decade, we got high-density displays, Siri, LTE and Lightning, custom 64-bit silicon and Touch ID, extensibility and continuity, Apple Watch and AirPods, computational photography, inductive charging, and shortcuts. When Tim Cook announced the iPhone X in 2017, the second big leap forward, it packaged together new technologies like bendable OLED displays, depth and Face ID sensing cameras, and neural engine blocks, but it also jettisoned the fundamental interactive model of the previous decade, the home button, and replaced it with a new, more direct gesture navigation system. Extreme dynamic range and spatial audio and Wi-Fi 6 and ultra-wideband followed, but looking back is never as exhilarating as looking forward. And that's what I really want to talk about today. Not what was, but what will be. Not this year, but for the next 10 years to come. Sure, we have iPhone 12 coming up and 5G, but beyond that, we have an even greater confluence of technologies rapidly emerging that when taken together could make for an even bigger third leap forward with iPhone 20. No, seriously. I'm Rene Ritchie, and this is Vector. At the beginning of the last decade, Steve Jobs took to the keynote stage one final time to announce iCloud, and with it, the end of iTunes PC tethering. It meant nothing less than freedom for the iPhone and iPad, the ability to own and use one even if you didn't have a PC. It took until iOS 5, but it happened. In this decade, I think we'll see the same thing happen with the Apple Watch. Not the death of another physical tether, but of a wireless one. The end of dependence on the iPhone and the beginning of independence for the Apple Watch. The ability to own and use one even if you don't have an iPhone. And as the phone does more and more of what the PC used to do, and the watch does more and more of what the phone used to do, so will the AirPods and similar earphones start doing more and more of what the watch used to do. I've done a video explaining all of this before, and I'll put a link to it in the description. But the AirPods will eventually become independent as well, be able to stream music and podcast and turn-by-turn directions, never mind without being connected to a phone or watch, but without you having to own a phone or watch if you don't want to. I've said numerous times on this channel that the history of human technology is a history of foldables, books, pamphlets, wallets, clothes, calzones, tacos, even laptops. We fold things because doubling depth in exchange for having width or height has been a fair deal. A good one even, when the outside can better protect what's inside. Displays are no different. Phones and tablets are getting bigger and bigger. Just over the last decade, we went from a 3.5-inch to a 6.5-inch iPhone and 9.7-inch iPad all the way up to 12.9 inches. And they don't just fit in some people's clutches anymore, or front pockets, or hell, even skinny hipster back or shirt pockets. Yes, the devices we're getting now aren't even beta, they're alpha. Never mind graduating, the technology is still in nursery school. And yes, I've also done a video on all of that, also linked in the description. But see, time has a way of solving for terrible, and when it starts solving for foldables, I expect we'll have screens the same way we have everything else, like wallets, like books, able to fold up and fit pretty much everywhere we want them to, while we're out doing pretty much everything we want to do without having to worry about them. While wearables and foldables got all of the ubbles' attention over the last many and few years, projectables have begun coming into their own as well. Just like websites were broken down into web services that could be manifested not only in browsers, but in apps and other services like the Twitter API, OAuth, YouTube streams, and the list is endless, so too have app interfaces been decoupled from logic and binary blobs broken down into far more portable functions. It basically lets your stuff exist in other stuff. WatchKit was an early, if ultimately flawed example, but CarPlay and Android Auto, AirPlay and Chromecast, far better ones. Continuity, AirDrop, Universal Clipboard, Handoff, all of it. It's the idea that not just your data, but its state, and even the functionality that goes with it, is no longer bound to a single device or instance, but to your identity, with all sorts of security baked in, of course. That starts to make a lot of what comes next so very exciting. Siri was one of the last things Steve Jobs worked on at Apple. It was announced just a day before he passed away. Over the last decade, we've seen the rise of Amazon's Alexa and Google's Assistant as well, Microsoft's Cortana, Samsung's Bixby, and a range of other more niche virtual assistants. None of them are terrific yet. None of them are Hal or Kit from Knight Rider, or even Her, much less Jarvis or Friday or anything dreamt up by sci-fi. They're only just now groping their way out of the primordial ooze towards true natural language voice interfaces, but they're groping. And when everything starts to click, when they start to really work, it'll legitimately be the beginning of not just a voice-first input revolution, but an ambient computing one. Screens will still be super useful for glanceability and to read things non-linearly, rather than have to wait to hear it if you don't have to, but everything else will be as fast as we can think and say it. And I've done videos on this before as well, also linked below, but say goodbye to debates about Touch ID versus Face ID, because the phones in our pockets, the watches on our wrists, the pods in our ears, the glasses in front of our eyes will just constantly grab glimpses of our facial geometry, snippets of our voices, touches of our fingers, rhythms of our pulses, steps from our gait, and other biometric and behavioral facets, and just know that it's us and be unlocked and ready for action as long as they remain confident that we are us. As 5G becomes ubiquitous and gives way to 6G, and maybe even 7G before the turn of the next decade, it'll all just be persistently connected as well. No more bars, just almost all the places, almost all the time. When all of these technologies come together, it's possible to imagine something for the next big leap in iPhone that goes well beyond the current conception of the iPhone. Instead of a slab of glass and steel, you have a marble or a cube or a fob. Maybe you wear it as a watch, or maybe you just keep it in your pocket. And what it does is three very simple things. 1. Local authentication. So, by constantly establishing a biometric and behavioral threshold of trust, it can reasonably prove we are us. So, 2. Cloud connection lets us access all of our data at its current state and within its current context. So, 3. It can project it onto any display, opportunistically, and conform to whatever interface paradigm is appropriate. That means if you have AirPods in your ears, you can access and affect anything you have in the cloud by just saying what it is you want to do, including complex operations by just talking out the equivalent of workflows. Literally, computer. If you're wearing augmented reality glasses, you get the visual interface as well, for when showing is still much more efficient than telling. And if you need more or different, you get it. A piece of glass and metal in your pocket or pack, small or large, folded or flat, becomes your computing environment. It just gets played to so you can use it like you do a phone or tablet or laptop today. An evolution of the Taptic engine will let you feel like you're using any type of keyboard or knob or button or control surface you need to use. Same with much bigger pieces of glass and metal on desks, yours and at co-working spaces or remote offices or hotels or conferences, and bigger ones still hanging or projected onto walls pretty much anywhere. But when you don't need it, it's just you, maybe your glasses or just your pods, pretty much the closest step we can get to external cybernetics until they become internal. And sure, that all may take longer to become a reality than iPhone 20. It may take until iPhone 30. I don't know. We still don't have many things science fiction imagined we would by now, like flying cars or spaceships taking us to bases, Moon, and Mars. But we do have a lot of things I think many, even in science fiction, never imagined. If I could, I'd animate it all out for you, like Evan from Polymatter, but that's where Skillshare comes in. Evan has classes on there where he shows you how to make an animated YouTube video, just like his Polymatter channel. It's intended as an introduction, but like he says, by the end of the course, you could have your first video uploaded to YouTube. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes in photography, video, business, technology, everything you need to make your life better. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to high-quality classes on must-know topics, so you can get better at your job, get a better job, or just learn something fulfilling that's not your job. Join more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare. Just visit the link in the description and get 2 months of unlimited access to thousands of classes for free. Act now and start learning today. Thanks Skillshare, and thanks to all of you for supporting the show. So, that's my vision for the next big confluence of technologies and the next big leap forward in personal computing. I'd love to hear yours. Hit like if you do, subscribe, and power word smash that bell gizmo. It's the only way YouTube will actually tell you when new videos go live. Then hit up the comments and let me know. Forget iPhone 12 in 2020. What do you think we'll see from iPhone 20 in 2027? Thanks for watching, and see you next video.